Truck drivers, what's a creepy story you've got from the middle of nowhere? Not a truck driver, but once I was driving through the Canadian Rockies late at night and had just passed through a small town. So I'm driving through the pitch black and I need to stop to pee and have a smoke. But because it's so dark I missed the last rest stop for the next while. No problem, the highway is completely deserted. So I pull to the side of the road, have my pee while staring out into the dark and then light up a cigarette and stand by my car. As I'm standing there I see the figure of a man just walking out of the tree line. I'm miles from civilization, patchy cell service, and there isn't a soul on the road. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me and maybe it was a deer, but nope, this was a man. So I calmly walk back to the driver's door and get in, locking the doors behind me. I'm keeping my eye on this guy as I nervously smoke and have my car in drive, ready to peel out, but for some reason I just stayed put. The guy walks right up to my passenger door and knocks on the window. I crack the window and I ask what's up. He replies to me in a very, very serious tone, "I need you to call the cops." I cautiously ask why and he tells me he had gone out into the woods to kill himself but he couldn't go through with it because he had thought of his daughters right before he was about to do it. I call the cops while the guy quietly cries outside. He had a kitchen knife that he was going to use on himself, so I stayed in the car and advised him to maybe leave the knife on the ground before the cops arrived. The cops came and got him, but before they left with him I gave him a solid heart-to-heart and wished him well. I still think about him. I hope he was able to turn things around. I used to work as a road train driver in the Gascoyne region of outback Western Australia. A lot of black dog phenomena on night shift. I would see all kinds of things appear in the shadows because of fatigue, or 3 goats would change into some sort of beast. One time I swear I nearly ran over a corgi, which would be astronomical odds there is one in the wild in this part of the outback. One night I pulled up to sleep, let the engine run cold for 10 minutes, then tried to sleep. I woke up to noises, not voices but some sort of order to the noises, and the whole cab of the truck was shaking. I looked in the mirror and saw shadows around the vehicle. I turned the truck on and every single light attached to the thing and hastily continued my run to the port. This is a big cab, would have taken a lot to move it. I rationalize it as it being windy, some goats around the truck and fatigue. Either way scared the fuck out of me and I never slept on night shift again. Well, it was creepy at first. I pull into a Purdue plant, drop my empty trailer at Go Park where they allow bobtails to sit, right next to a nice little pond. My pickup was in 12 hours, so I do my ptie and lay down in the bunk. At about 3 a.m. I hear something tapping on my passenger side door. I get up, look out the window expecting to see someone, maybe a driver asking for a lumper check, but no one's there. Maybe I'm hearing things. So I go back to lay down. As soon as my head hits the pillow I hear the tapping again, except this time it's on my driver's side. Same thing as before, I jump up and look out my window but nothing's there. Double lock my doors just in case and open my side hatches so I can hear what's going on outside. After about 15 minutes, I hear a very light splat 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 going along the driver's side of the truck. I slowly get up, planning to look out my window at the exact moment whoever it is knocks on my door. And then I hear a thud coming from the roof of the cab. I stop, grab my tire thumper off its hook and ready myself for whatever the hell is going on. Then a motherfucking goose falls off the top of the truck and lands on my hood. It stands up, waddles back and forth and looks at me. As we make eye contact, the tapping at my door starts again. I say fuck it and throw open the driver's side door, and there's another damn goose waddling away with all the speed it can manage, honking like a 5-year-old who just found the horn on his new bike. The pond I parked next to had a ton of them just dicking around. Needless to say, it was hard to sleep that night because every couple minutes the damn geese would peck at my door or land on the cab and waddle around. Used to do deliveries, not actually a truck driver, though. I used to have this regular that was out in the boondocks, 25 meters plus out of the way of civilization and smack dab in the middle of 2 large towns. I would drive this route maybe once a month, and would always pass at least one car driving towards me due to the sheer length of the drive. There was a small group of old houses on this route that were really broken down, and I had never seen anyone around them in 6+ months of driving the route. Always assumed they were vacant because they didn't look livable. Well, I was driving out to this customer one fall afternoon. Had been driving for a very long time without seeing a single car drive towards me. Finally drive past the abandoned houses, and there's one old lady in her front yard pushing an old manual grass cutter, but she stops in her tracks as I drive towards her. I took it as a sign I was speeding or something and slow down. I take a quick glance in my rear view mirror after passing by, and she was staring straight at me. She dropped the grass cutter and turned 180 to do this. It was just very odd and definitely set off my spidey sense. Never saw her again or anyone else on that route by those houses in the 10 months I drove it. Not the middle of nowhere, but a trash route in a pretty rural area. We were at a stop loading trash when a pickup stopped behind us. A petite woman in scrubs that were covered in blood got out and asked directions to Lake Jack Nolan. She said there was a deer that had been hit by a truck and she had been sent to remove the remains. She never said who sent her, but she wasn't moving a deer anywhere at her size. We gave her directions and sent her on her way. We all said we wondered if she was going to dump a body or something. She was already covered in blood in a nice truck and was supposed to be on her way to move roadkill that was far too heavy for her to handle. Then we went back to work. Trucker here. I think the best creepy thing that ever happened to me was I was heading from Tucson, Oz, up into Salt Lake City, UT. Well, this was a few years ago and the main highway had been taken out in a flash flood, was under construction, so I had to take a weird detour through the mountains in lower Utah. Well, it was getting late and I was getting tired, so I pulled off onto the shoulder and went to sleep in my bunk. Now this was in the middle of nowhere, closest town was like 40 miles away, so it is completely pitch black outside once I turn the lights off. Anyway, around 4 a.m. I wake up because I'm hearing something messing with my truck, like playing with the air and power cables between my cab and the trailer, which is literally 6 inches from where my head is at but on the outside of the cab. Then I feel something climb onto the landing that's on the back of my truck and it shakes my whole truck, so I'm guessing something around 200 to 300 pounds was climbing around back there. I'm thinking like a mountain lion or a bear. At this point I'm wide the F awake and I want to get this thing away from me, so I slam my hand into my cab wall trying to scare whatever is out there, slam hard enough to really make it loud. I then hear someone, a male, scream bloody murder and I hear them fall off the back of my truck. I then hear about 15 other people all around my truck yelling. I climb up front, turn on my lights and illuminate a squad of Army reserves doing their midnight ruck march and capture drills. Turns out these guys were supposed to go find an abandoned truck and secure it for their midnight drills. That truck was 3 miles back down the road. They were not expecting me to be sleeping there, and thought I was part of the drill. I'm ex-military, so after explaining I was not part of their test and legit was just there out of coincidence, we laughed it off. They had to radio to their CO and tell them I was there and not have the other squads bother me. Edit. Wow, thank you for the awards and the likes, never had this many before. Parked off an exit ramp at about 3 a.m. for my 10-hour. The moon was full and high, and I spotted an unmistakably human figure in a nearby cut corn field. A little spooky, but I just wrote it off as an old-timer putting up a scarecrow for the grandkids. Started watching a few YouTube videos before turning in and out the corner of my vision eye, though I saw movement. I shut my lights off to get a good look, saw the figure but nothing else. I couldn't be sure, but it looked like maybe it was in a different spot. Maybe a little closer even. I was definitely feeling a bit spooked. Highway was devoid of anyone besides a car passing every 10 minutes or so. I didn't want to, but I had to jump out to pee. I considered a bottle, but I told myself I was being childish. I took a look at the figure and it was right where I figured it should be. I hop out, walk between my truck and trailer and start leaking. Every fiber of my being wanted to look. I told myself again I was being foolish, but I couldn't help it. I looked out. The field was empty, the figure wasn't there. My stomach dropped, I pinched off and jumped back in. I took off down the highway, didn't give one shit about a violation. Stopped 40 minutes up the road at a well-lit and very full Love's. Haven't stopped on a ramp since. I posted this somewhere else recently, but it fits better here. I used to deliver hotshot freight across the Great Plains/Minnesota area. One night around 2 a.m. I was hauling across North Dakota trying to reach Montana by morning. I was delivering a particularly valuable tractor part that a farm desperately needed for the following day. I began to notice some highway hypnosis sneaking up on me, but it didn't really bother me because I'd been through it hundreds of times before. Anyone who has driven across North Dakota knows that it is incredibly flat. Like, really flat. There also tends to be very straight and long roads. It's somewhat easy to see things on the road that are far away, even at night. I noticed something long on the road, spanning my entire lane, approximately half a mile in front of me. I slowed down a little and prepared to move into the opposite lane, thinking it was some retread off a blown tire. As I got closer I noticed it was two people, laying head to toe across the entire lane. I swerved into the other lane, successfully avoiding them and came to an almost complete stop. But they didn't move. Not an inch. I was just about to back up and check on them when I remembered a story that an old graybeard colleague of mine told me. He told me that in certain remote areas, people will lie down in the middle of the road and wait for a car or truck to stop and see what's going on. At that point, the road layers along with whoever else is hiding in the nearby bushes will beat the shit out of the driver and steal his vehicle, leaving him in the middle of nowhere. I decided not to back up, and when the two people in the road saw me put my truck back in gear and drive away, they both got up and walked toward the shoulder. I called the police and explained what happened, but we were so far away from civilization that I doubt anything came of it. Thanks to that old graybeard, I got to keep my truck, my job, and my teeth. COVID was raging, and there was a truck stop, the only one around for a long while. I stopped there and parked, needing to pee badly, but the actual truck stop was closed with no available restrooms, and I had no empty bottles or anything to pee in, so I was desperate and tried to find a secluded spot, and the best place I could find was in some bushes. As a man, my options are much more plentiful. Unfortunately, the spot would be visible to one trucker that was parked nearby, and I saw that he was awake in his cab in the daylight, so I thought it would be polite to approach him and say, "I'm sorry, man. Their restrooms are closed, and I'm gonna go pee in those bushes right there. I wanted to let you know so I don't weird you out." He was an older guy and responded, "No, man, you can just go between my tractor and trailer and pee there on the ground. No one can see you there." I chuckled and said, "Thanks, sir, but if I'm gonna do that, I'll just do it between my own tractor and trailer," and I started walking back to my truck. He called out, No. Do it between my tractor and trailer." Something was really disturbing, though admittedly funny, about a guy insisting I pee between his truck and trailer. I was once sitting in my truck in broad daylight at a closed rest stop when some weirdo decided to come up and announce to me he was going to pee in a bush where I could see instead of just going between his tractor and trailer like a normal person. Not sure if this story is creepy, but it's definitely scary. My father was a truck driver in East Africa in the 80s and early 90s. During the years leading up to the Rwandan genocide, my father was passing through Rwanda. He reached a checkpoint and was forcibly removed from his truck at gunpoint. Apparently he looked like he belonged to the Tutsi tribe and they put him in a cage with other Tutsi prisoners. He tried communicating that he isn't Rwandan, but no one spoke the same language as him. Every night they would take about 5 people from the cage and slaughter them in front of him. After the third night, he saw a man that spoke a little bit of Swahili, which my dad spoke, and told him that he's not Rwandan and showed him his ID. Somehow that guy got him out and he was handed the keys to his truck and was on his way. Not up, but trauma from seeing people die does affect people differently. Big sad here, skip for no sad faces while reading. I witnessed 2 kids murdered in the car in front of me when my mom dropped my brother off at the school. Doors were locked. Back in the day it was okay to leave a kid in a car with AC, but a man who lost his daughters in a custody battle walked up to the car in front of me and shot both of them through the head, 5 shots. I saw it all. I saw him run across the street to the parking lot and blow his brains out. It's a major memory that I can't get out of my head. I hear the gunshots, The one scream before it ended, the glass breaking. I even fucking remember him closing the car door before running 20 feet and then watching him twitch before my mom and my brother's teacher bolted through the front door to get me and everyone else inside. No more big sad here, it's a memory that'll never escape me. The best thing I can do is focus on other things like friends and what's happening around me. It's such a repressed memory that I only ever think of it if someone directly asks me if I've seen someone died before. My heart sinks, and I'm flushed with a cold chill and nauseated every single time. It's okay though, great friends, and lots to keep me busy, so I don't ever think about it anymore. Well, this thread is the first time in about 2 years I thought about it, so if you'll excuse me I'll exit this thread now, but if you have something troubling you talk to people about it, or other things if you need to not think about it. I had to go to counseling for several months afterwards. I managed to pull through decently though. Don't be afraid to ask anyone for help if you need to, there is no shame, and if you have things that trouble you and you need to speak to someone feel free to load up my inbox, I'll talk to anyone who needs it. Edit. I appreciate the awards guys, and gals, but please, unless you're spending free coins please don't waste your money on me. I really appreciate the warm responses but there is no need. If you insist on spending money on me, can I direct you to help people instead with my favorite donation cause? I used to drive truck in northern Manitoba. There's a road in the northeast you can drive for several hours and see very few vehicles. This road is quite flat and straight in stretches. Of course, this is deep in the bush. One day I saw something cross the road in the distance. Very large, easily past the hood on my truck. But not long, like a moose or elk. Just tall. It disappeared into the bush and as I drove by the spot the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I heard days later a tow truck driver describing on the radio his encounter with a similar creature, only he was much more clear he had spotted Bigfoot. This guy went to some length to explain he didn't want people thinking he was crazy. But he was sure what he saw. I asked an Aboriginal client of mine in a nearby community and he said the elders spoke of them as commonly the same way they spoke of the other animals. I don't know what I saw that day but I'm certain it wasn't a bear, moose, deer or elk. I just don't know what the hell it was. Driving through an abandoned section of Baltimore at 3 in the morning, my CB radio turned itself on and crackled for a bit. Out of nowhere some voice over the radio said in a deep southern drawl, "I ain't got no panties on." I could see up and down the interstate for miles and saw not one set of headlights. That was Fred, he just wanted you to know he didn't have no panties on. Honestly, though, I have no idea why or when that started, but I've heard it for over 26 years. Leave the CB on, and you will hear it at least once a day. Always a southern drawl, and always said in a harsh whisper. I know it's a thing, and I've heard it multiple times before and since. Now, the fact that there was no one around us what creeped me out.